When 17-year-old Zoe Nelson stormed out of her home after a heated argument with her mother and younger sister, no one could have imagined it would be the last time they'd see her alive. What followed just days later was a chilling discovery that left an entire community shaken and her family heartbroken. Investigations soon began, unraveling the dark and devastating mystery surrounding Zoe's disappearance. This is the tragic story of Zoe Nelson. Zoe Nelson was born on August 13, 1992, in Wishaw, Scotland. By 2010, she lived in Newmains, a village and former mining town near Wishaw, with her mother, Mary Ann Nelson, her stepfather, Daniel, and her two younger sisters, Laura Ann and Ashley. Zoe was a student at Motherwell College, where she was well liked and had a large circle of friends. At 17, Zoe and her 16-year-old sister, Laura Ann, were romantically involved with the same man, 20-year-old Robert Bain, leading to significant tensions between them. Robert lived with his grandparents about a mile from the Nelson family home. On May 22, 2010, Zoe met Robert outside her house, and when Laura Ann saw this, she became upset and rushed out to confront her sister. Their 40-year-old mother, Mary Ann, witnessed the two sisters fighting. Recalling the events of that day, Mary Ann described how Laura Ann ran out, flicked Zoe's hair, and tried to slap her, leading to a fight at the end of the driveway. Mary Ann intervened the fracas, telling Zoe to leave, calling her a cow in the process and warning her not to return. Zoe promised she wouldn't come back, and she kept her word, never returning home that night. Little did they know that this would be the last time they saw Zoe alive as well. Later that night, around 11 p.m., it was said that some locals saw someone starting a fire in the wooded area known as Monkey Hill. The smell of smoke reached nearby houses, but at the time no one paid much attention. Zoe's 35-year-old aunt, Shirley Nelson, later recalled that night, describing how she had been sitting in her garden in Newmains after finishing her second work shift and having some drinks. She mentioned that she and her sister stayed outside until around 11 p.m. when it started to get cooler. They had noticed the smell of smoke but didn't think much of it at the time. The following day, Shirley heard other relatives trying to reach Zoe, so she tried calling her cell phone as well, but got no answer. On the afternoon of May 23rd, 45-year-old Stuart Bell, a government employee from Wishaw, rode his motorcycle into a nearby wooded area. As he passed through, he noticed something unusual and decided to stop. He initially thought he was looking at a charred tailor's dummy, but upon closer inspection, he realized it was a human body burned in a fire. Shocked, Stuart immediately returned home to call the police, who arrived within 20 minutes. "I shouted up the stairs to my wife that I'd found a body in the woods and just immediately phoned the police," he recalled. When the officers arrived, they sealed off the area. Nothing that horrific had ever happened in the neighborhood before, and word of the body that was found spread quickly among the locals. Upon hearing the news, Zoe's mother, Mary Ann Nelson, went to the police to report her daughter missing, as she hadn't seen her since their argument when Zoe had left and promised not to return. Before long, the Nelson family received the devastating news. Zoe's body was the one that had been found. In a statement released through the police, Zoe's mother, Mary Ann, expressed that her daughter was a well-liked, typical 17-year-old with many friends and known throughout the community. She mentioned that Zoe would have been celebrating her 18th birthday in just a couple of months, adding that she, her stepfather, and her sisters were devastated by the loss. The family urged anyone with information to come forward and help the police. Hugh Logan, the principal of Motherwell College, where Zoe was studying vehicle body repair, said the entire college community was deeply shocked by the tragic news, and their thoughts were with her family and friends. He further stated that Zoe had been a very popular and well-liked student at the college. The scene was thoroughly examined over several days, with more than 50 police officers dedicated to the case. Detective Derek Robertson, leading the investigation, described Zoe's death as a tragic loss of a young life and vowed that his team would not stop until the culprit was brought to justice. He emphasized the importance of anyone who had seen Zoe between 5 p.m. and 11:20 p.m. on that Saturday coming forward to help. He noted that it had been the hottest day of the year, and the area would have been busy with people taking shortcuts, sunbathing, and walking their dogs, and that there were numerous dirt paths that ran through the area, including one near where Zoe's body was discovered. He further stated that they were eager to hear from anyone who had been in the area or had a view from one of the houses backing onto it, in case they noticed anything unusual. Zoe was described as being 5 feet 6 inches tall, with collar-length brown hair and a heavy build, and she was last seen wearing grey tracksuit bottoms, a white long-sleeved t-shirt, and black Nike trainers. Detectives reviewed CCTV footage, phone and computer records, conducted door-to-door inquiries, and spoke to Zoe's friends and family in an effort to trace her last movements. On May 26th, police released surveillance footage from a local store where Zoe had been spotted just hours before her death. These details were crucial to the investigation, helping authorities reconstruct Zoe's final steps and ultimately leading to the arrest of the individual responsible for her death. Police reported that the public's response to their appeals for information was slower than anticipated. They had now created a dedicated email address to facilitate contact from the public, as they hoped that those unwilling to come forward in person would use this and other methods to provide crucial information. During the investigation of the crime scene, a cap from a tequila bottle, shaped like a red plastic sombrero, was discovered near the body, with a matching empty bottle found on the opposite side of a small path. Forensic experts estimated that Zoe's body had been exposed to fire for approximately 7 hours, which limited their ability to determine the exact cause of death. When discovered, the body had a plastic bag partially melted over most of the face, leading pathologists to conclude that asphyxiation was the most probable cause of death. The palm of the right hand was relatively intact, and 2 DNA samples were collected from it. One DNA sample was identified as belonging to Zoe Nelson, while the other was linked to an unidentified man. The cause of death was officially listed as undetermined. By May 28th, police had gathered several witness statements. One witness reported seeing Zoe at around 5:15 p.m. on May 22nd with a man who appeared very drunk and was physically attacking her, hitting her in the head. Another witness observed Zoe walking past his house in Newmains with a man who had a tattooed face. A third witness saw Zoe and a man with a similar description in Newmains, noting that the man seemed angry, struck a lamppost as he passed, and threatened to take someone's life that night. Other witnesses also described the man Zoe was seen with all their descriptions matching that of 20-year-old Robert Bain. Despite his youth, Robert Bain had a criminal record, having served 18 months in prison for robbery and being released just 7 weeks before Zoe's death. He had also been arrested 4 times for drug possession, but as a juvenile, he faced minimal consequences. Investigators began to view Bain as a primary suspect, and while they deliberated on their next actions, Robert Bain voluntarily approached the police. Just before 6 p.m. on May 28th, Bain entered the Wishaw police station, intending to give a statement. He appeared heavily intoxicated and was slurring his speech. Bain claimed that a few days earlier, in Motherwell, a man named Stuart Campbell had boarded the bus he was on. Bain said he asked Campbell, "Were you with Zoe on Saturday night?" And that Campbell responded, "Yes, I took her life." This was the first time the police had encountered the name Stuart Campbell during the investigation, while Bain's name had been frequently mentioned. Consequently, Bain was arrested the same day. However, there was a significant reason for the arrest that the public would only learn about during the trial. When Bain was officially arrested, he claimed that he last saw Zoe on the morning of May 22nd, after a chance meeting at the local newsstand where he went to buy cigarettes. On the morning of May 29th, the police issued a statement announcing that a 20-year-old man had been arrested and was in custody in connection with Zoe Nelson's death. Tests on a swab taken from Zoe's hand revealed her DNA, along with traces of another individual, which matched parts of Bain's DNA profile. DNA from both Nelson and Bain was found on the tequila bottle and its cap discovered near the body. The forensic experts suggested that the presence of their DNA on the cap indicated that both had drunk from the bottle and then replaced the cap. Experts stated that the scientific evidence supported the conclusion that Robert Bain's DNA was found between Zoe Nelson's fingers and on her right palm. The probability that the DNA and the red plastic sombrero lid could belong to anyone other than Bain was 10 million to 1. Robert was charged in connection with Zoe Nelson's death based on numerous eyewitness accounts and DNA evidence. He pleaded not guilty, acted defiantly, and even confronted one of the investigators. Bain also denied a prior assault on Zoe reported by a witness in which he allegedly struck her in the head with his fist. Fast forward to March 1st, 2011, Robert Bain's trial commenced, with Bain steadfastly claiming his innocence. Zoe's friends testified that a week before her death, she had mentioned that the scratches and bruises that she had were from a fight with Bain. Zoe had told her friends that Bain was very controlling, erratic, and prone to anger over minor issues. He had restricted her from socializing with certain friends, although their relationship couldn't be considered serious, given that Robert had been out of prison for less than 2 months. Despite this, he exerted significant influence over Zoe, and also had a relationship with her younger sister, Laura Ann. Speaking of Laura Ann, a shocking revelation would soon emerge in court. Even before Zoe's body was found by the passerby, Laura Ann already knew her sister was dead. She had kept this knowledge to herself for 5 days, and although the police had not disclosed this information earlier, it was later revealed at the trial that Robert had taken Laura Ann to the location where her sister's body was found. Laura Ann testified from behind a screen in court, so she could not see Bain, as she recounted that, on the morning of May 23rd, the day after her argument with Zoe, she visited Bain's address to return some clothing items. Upon arrival, she observed that Robert seemed anxious and had been drinking vodka. Soon after, Robert took her outside and said he wanted to show her something. Laura Ann said he led her to the spot where Zoe's body was located. During her testimony, Laura Ann explained that she recognized her sister by a distinctive ranger tattoo on her arm. According to her, Bain admitted that he had struck Zoe, and when she attempted to retaliate, he lost his temper, took her life, and then used gasoline in an effort to erase any evidence of the crime. Laura Ann also confessed to walking with Bain the day after the body was discovered. She later visited his home, spent time in his bedroom listening to music, and talked with him on the phone for about an hour. Laura Ann's friend, who testified at the trial, noted that she appeared happy and normal, despite knowing her sister was dead. When questioned about why she hadn't shared everything with the police during her initial interrogation, Laura Ann explained that she feared her mother wouldn't believe her and would think she was responsible for Zoe's death. The jury also heard Laura Ann state that Robert Bain had threatened her, warning that she would face the same fate as Zoe if she disclosed what he had done. On March the 25th, 2011, a jury of 7 men and 7 women returned a unanimous guilty verdict. Robert Bain had to be physically restrained as the verdict was delivered at the High Court in Edinburgh. While handcuffed, he leapt up in the dock, violently struggling with security and police officers, and even headbutted one of them. He also hurled insults and threats at Zoe Nelson's family, forcing the courtroom to be cleared while officers restored order. After a 20-minute break, the judge decided to continue the trial in Bain's absence. Robert Bain was acquitted of charges related to stealing alcohol from a store in Newmains on May 22nd and disorderly conduct for shouting, swearing and brandishing a knife in various Wishaw streets that same day. Bain was also cleared of stealing Zoe's cell phone, which was found in the woods, and of threatening a police officer during an interview at the Motherwell police station on May 28th. On April 27, 2011, Robert Bain was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 20 years for the murder of Zoe Nelson, plus an additional 6 years for the obstruction of justice, with both sentences to be served concurrently. In sentencing Bain, the judge described the crime as appalling and the circumstances as truly shocking. As the Nelson family exited the courthouse, Zoe's aunt, Shirley Nelson, expressed their dissatisfaction with Bain's 20-year minimum term. She remarked that a life should mean a life, and advocated for a return to more severe punishment such as hanging. She also conveyed gratitude for the support they received, stating that the family now had to accept that Zoe would never be seen again due to Bain's actions. Following the verdict, Zoe's uncle declared that Bain deserved it, adding that Bain's courtroom behavior highlighted his threatening nature, calling him an animal who was clearly guilty. After the court session, the officer who led the investigation noted that Bain showed no remorse for his actions. He commented that Bain's reaction during the verdict demonstrated his true nature, and hoped that the streets would be safer now that Bain was behind bars, allowing the Nelson family to begin healing. On June 16, 2010, Zoe Nelson's funeral was attended by hundreds of people. The service took place at Coltness Memorial Church in her hometown of Newmains, with Zoe then laid to rest at the Cambusnethan Cemetery in Wishaw. Among the over 200 mourners were Zoe's mother, Mary Ann Nelson, her sisters, Ashley and Laura Ann, as well as her grandmother and other family members. Reverend Graham Rayburn, who conducted the service, remarked on the substantial turnout, emphasizing the profound impact Zoe had in her brief life. He observed that the presence of so many people illustrated how deeply Zoe had touched others' lives. He described Zoe as a typical teenager who was always joyful, with a constant smile and a big heart. He noted her affection for young children and her willingness to support her friends. He further mentioned that Zoe, who would have turned 18 the following month, was somewhat of a tomboy with a passion for fast cars and a keen supporter of rangers. He also shared that Zoe never had the chance to meet her new nephew, born a few weeks after her death, and that she had hoped to connect with her biological father once she turned 18, a wish she unfortunately never fulfilled. Years later, on Christmas Eve 2022, 29-year-old Laura Ann Nelson was unfortunately found deceased in her apartment after several days of silence. She was survived by her two young children, who were aged 3 and 4 at the time. However, her death was not considered crime-related, as Laura Ann had a history of health issues due to her type 1 diabetes. It is unfortunate what happened to Zoe Nelson at the hands of this monster, and the ultimate betrayal she faced not only from him, but also from her sister, who knew the person responsible for her heartbreaking and untimely demise. Our heartfelt prayers and thoughts extend to her departed soul and the loved ones she left behind. If you found this video compelling, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel and check out our other videos. Thank you for watching.